Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Fallen London. Today we're going to be carrying on with the exceptional story that is the richest juice in poison flowers. So it appears to be a new update here. Added a new outfit category called adornments. Ooh, interesting. And we can buy luggage in the bazaar streets. I'll have to have a look at that after I finish recording. But we are standing beside a very big plant right now. You stand beside the sun-touched gardener, faces sweating, snatching shallow breaths of soupy air. "It's happening," he says, and steps closer to the plant. The petals rustle, then peel back to reveal a glimpse of flame-orange spadix. You step closer and feel the heat of the sun on your face. You too are the first to witness such a bloom in the Neath. The spadix swells as it tastes air for the first time. Waves of yellow and orange and black ripple beneath its surface. "Like flames," whispers the sun-touched gardener. Then the smell hits you. Fresh cut grass. An orchard on a summer's day. The wind through an olive grove, ripe fruit slick with tropical rain. The soulflower bathes you in a soft radiance, its warmth both promise and relief. The heavy darkness of the cavern dissipates as you take another step towards it, but the gardener is closer. His face gleams in the light. A slit opens on the spadix tip and he strokes it gently, coaxing out the tendril within. It is like a thread of flame. You can only watch the golden tendril caress his face as it parts his lips and slips inside his sighing mouth. This doesn't seem good. Then night falls. Petals flutter to the hothouse floor. The spadix dims. The gardener falls to his knees. Oh dear. A seed has been sown. I'm fine, splutters the sun-touched gardener, scrabbling for his handkerchief. As he coughs, there is a crash from behind, and the hothouse door shatters. Illuminated in the stove's glow are three figures, two masked, one made of clay, and all armed. "The soul flower," says the clay man, raising his cudgel. Great chunks are missing from his arm. What remains of the bloom is deeply embedded in the vast stone pot. It would be impossible to carry, even if the gardener was in any state to help. The three assailants surround you. We've got two options. We can either run, you and the gardener must escape, or we can set the soulflower on fire, then run. Whoever these people are, you do not want them to have it. I feel like setting it on fire might be a bad idea. I don't know who these people are. Let's just run. You grab the gardener's hand, push the smallest assailant aside, and run through the shattered hothouse door. Glass crunching beneath your feet. You yank the gardener through the poison garden, out of the gate, and along the back alleys around Lady Bones Road. You don't stop running until you are far away, sure that you have not been followed. The gardener sits, trembling on an upturned packing crate, trying to catch his breath. You wait. No one comes. So we escaped the hothouse and we left the soulflower intact. Let's talk to the poisoned gardener. The sun-touched gardener holds his handkerchief to his mouth as a coughing fit racks his body. Once it has passed, he He takes a surreptitious look at the handkerchief, winces, and stuffs it into his waistcoat pocket.
It's probably nothing, he rasps. If the soulflower was really dangerous, she'd have told me.
He stands up, a little shakily.
You don't need to stay. I'll be fine. I'm just going to the university. She'll be there. It'll put my mind at ease.
He rubs his chest.
Honestly, don't worry about...
He succumbs to another bout of coughing. Let's go to the university with him. He's in no state to go alone. The sun-touched gardener protests as you help him into a carriage, but eventually relents. In a hoarse voice, he directs the driver to the back of a university accommodation building.
He doesn't like me going through the front,
he whispers as you climb the back staircase. That is no answer when the gardener knocks on the enterprising botanist's door. He waits, checks to see whether anyone is watching, and stoops to lift a loose floorboard. Beneath is a key. He unlocks the botanist's door, and you follow him inside. Paper and books are strewn over every surface except a lab bench, which is piled high with glassware. The sun-touched gardener staggers to the wardrobe and yanks it open.
Her bag's gone, he says. She does this sometimes, and isn't back for weeks.
He runs a shaking hand through his hair.
Maybe there's an antidote somewhere, he says, stifling a cough. Or maybe her papers will tell us where she's gone.
Gardner doesn't have much time and will search wherever you do not. So we can either search her lab bench, perhaps she was working on an antidote, or we can rifle through her correspondence. You may find a clue to her whereabouts. Let's look through her bench. You clink through the bottles, each label more ominous than the last. It would be best not to worry too much about whether any came from the poison garden, and always best to wash your hands before eating. Eventually you find a box containing a vial of grey liquid and a botanical drawing of the soulflower. It seems the liquid is from the slow river, and...
You found it,
cries the gardener, plucking the paper from your hand. His face falls as he reads.
We need other shroom spores too. I know where we can get some. An old friend.
A chagrined smile. He pockets the vial.
I found a letter. Someone wanted to buy the soulflower and offered to meet her in a pub in Spite to discuss terms. Don't know whether the meeting went ahead, but it's a lead.
Okay. Someone knocks at the door, and the sun-touched gardener puts a finger to his lips. I know what you've been doing, says a voice that you've heard before. If your soulflower germinates, then the provost finding out is the least of your worries. And there's a pause. Please, the voice continues, more gently this time, forget the grants. I'm afraid for you. There is a silence, during which the gardener gives you a nervous look. The footsteps eventually recede. The gardener staggers across the room to the window and wrenches it open. Follow the gardener. You cannot leave the way you came.
She never minded me being here on my own,
pants the sun-touched gardener as you navigate the wrought iron fire escape.
But her colleagues never liked me much. Can't say I blame them.
You help him to a bench, but he can catch his breath. He takes the vial of slow river water out of his waistcoat pocket.
I've never met the boatman, he says. I heard people talk about him when I first arrived in the Neath, but I never thought she... He trails off. Just as well she did, I suppose. I suppose I should be angry with her, says the sun-touched gardener, wiping a sleeve across his sweaty forehead.
for not telling me what could happen if I got too close to the soulflower. But I never asked. Just told myself not to think about why it had to be smuggled into the Neath, or kept secret from the university. He looks at you. I'm going after those thieves to get the soulflower back, or at least find out who. He succumbs to another coughing fit. Whatever he does next, he is in no state to do it alone. Both trips are urgent, but you will need to delay one regardless of the cost. Well, I think going after the antidote is probably the better option here. So let's do that. Let's go after the antidote. We could go after the thieves. Maybe the thieves know more, though. Let's go after the antidote. He has been poisoned, and his condition is advancing. No, rasps the gardener. The lead is more important. We have to understand what's at stake otherwise. He starts coughing again. But this time his breath comes out in a softly glowing cloud that sparkles slightly before winking into darkness. Alright, he says, but we have to be quick. You flag down a carriage, and he chokes out directions to Woolstack Docks. As soon as you start to move, he falls into a fitful sleep, eyes flicking back and forth beneath their shiny lids. The sun-touched gardener wakes with a gasp. When he understands where you are, he fumbles for some coins for the driver and staggers out onto the street. As you help him through the docks, it is impossible not to notice the number of people who nod greetings at him. I've never been to Z, he says, but my work brought me here a lot in the early days. Made a few friends. He points at a shabby pontoon in the distance. See that trawler on the end? Not a captain. Come on. Help him to the trawler. The pontoon is too treacherous for him to go alone. You help the sun-touched gardener across the slick pontoon to the trawler, which is caked in mud from the Z's brackish waters. A dishevelled woman leans from the engine room, brandishing a wrench. But her demeanour changes when she sees the gardener, and she ushers you both aboard. The gardener explains his need for uttershroom spores as the sea-worn captain wraps him in a blanket that smells of engine oil and fish. They're dangerous, he says, so I don't want either of you going after them. Just tell me where I can. He doubles over in pain, gasping. You're staying here, he says. That boy always remembered who his friends were, says the Z-worn captain, as she leads you through the docks. Help people when they needed, and no thought to how they might help him in return. He points to an imposing warehouse. Man who owns that place smuggles spores into London. Nasty piece of work. Can't say I'm not enjoying helping you rob the bugger. Yes, it's you going in there. Guards know my face. He proceeds to tell you where exactly the spores should be hidden. So we can either persuade the guards to admit you to the warehouse. There must be a way to appeal to their sympathies using our persuasive, or we could pay them instead. We'll use our wits and charm. You approach with an apologetic smile and a concocted story about having labelled the wrong box for distribution. Possibly. You're actually fairly sure it's fine, but the man who owns this place would make a dreadful fuss if it isn't. Guards exchange looks at the mention of their boss and step aside. Just don't touch anything, says the taller of the two. Inside, you follow the Z-worn captain's directions to a cabinet wedged against a wall. The second drawer from the left has a trick bottom. Beneath the panel is a small silver box. You pocket it. You leave the warehouse with a nod to the guards and hurry back to the trawler. The Z-worn captain is already there, holding a damp cloth to the gardener's brow. His eyes flicker open and you say his name, and he reaches a trembling hand into his pocket for the vial of slow river water. "I'll keep watch," says the Z-worn captain, and steps out onto the dock. Let's administer the antidote. You smooth the enterprising botanist's notes out upon the blanket. 5 drops of slow river water with a pinch of utter shroom spores, taken orally. Highly inadvisable unless the patient is already afflicted by the seed of the soulflower, in which case matters could hardly get worse. The sun-touched gardener winces as he swallows the paste. "Not the first time we met," he says. "Preferred it the other way round, if I'm honest." He lies back on the bunk, shivering. The botanist's notes are purely theoretical, and she knows little of human medicine, but they suggest that even after prompt administration of an antidote, the patient's condition is likely to get worse before it gets better. The Z-worn captain pokes her head around the door. "Don't want to worry you, but word is on the docks that the warehouse owner's on his way over. You're not here when he does his rounds." You haul the sun-touched gardener into a carriage. "Used to walk all the way from Wolfstack to Ladybones," he murmurs. "Gotta pay for a carriage, but walking for hours, exploring the streets, looking up at the roof." He rests his head against the cool window. "Helped me in the early days." He drifts in and out of sleep until the carriage comes to a stop. As you move to help him once again, he puts a hand on your arm. "Thank you," he says. "Left up to me, I wouldn't have gone to the docks until later, if I'd have even made it that long." The sun-touched gardener is running a heavy fever, but you still have work to do. Let's go after the thieves, at last. There may still be time to learn something from this lead. "I hope we haven't lost too much time," says the sun-touched gardener, as you help him into the carriage and tell the driver to take you to the pub in spite. "Stop here," the gardener says once you're in sight of the establishment. "Let's watch from the shadows." It is a rowdy place. A gaggle of rubbery men gesticulate wildly at each other, while gamblers take bets on a tomb colonist fight outside the door. Urchins are constantly being ejected. You squint through the windows to see the silhouette of the Clayman. "Let's go in," whispers the gardener. "I don't want to miss anything else." It will be easy to remain unseen amid the chaos of the pub, as long as you do nothing to draw attention to yourselves. "Follow my lead," murmurs the sun-touched gardener. "I've done this before." He lifts a hat off a hook near the door, then pulls it low over his head before leading you to a sticky booth. The thieves are now within earshot. Let's blend in. You're no slouch at sneakery either. See if your idea of subterfuge matches his. I don't want to, take away from this scene or anything, but if I remember correctly, my outfit right now is, a magnificent midnight blue evening gown. A fantastic piece of fashion, but I would argue not the best for blending in at a pub in spite. But never mind. My sneakery is at 100%. The sun-touched gardener orders a beer, but doesn't drink it. His skin is clammy, and he is shivering beneath his stolen hat. But you act as if this is normal. Gradually, the thieves in the next booth begin to speak candidly. "There weren't supposed to be people at the hothouse," bits one. "No one can plan for every eventuality," replies another.
But all is not lost. We can still help the cause. Just let me think.
The gardener nudges you.
The cause? They're revolutionaries, he whispers.
The sun-touched gardener closes his eyes and leans over his untouched pint, trying to hear the revolutionaries' whispered conversation. They speak of the cause and liberation and a woman in a Janus mask. They speak of smashing street lamps and bringing down the masters and bombing the bazaar itself. They speak of revolution. Oh no. Well, let's listen to their plans. Eavesdropping will be difficult in this place. Though you only catch snippets of the conversation, you glean that the revolutionaries considered the Soulflower a grave threat to their cause. Sunlight is a kind of poison, they agree, and speculate as to whether the light of the Soulflower is merely a narcotic or a kind of tyranny brought down from the surface in a living host. The only way to know for sure and understand how to prevent sunlight's insidious creep is to examine the Soulflower further. Delivering its remains to the one they report to was the first step. But there is still more to do. They do not discuss the matter further. So these guys are obviously the liberation of night, which is interesting. I'm always interested finding out more about those guys. Well, let's observe the revolutionaries. Who are they? What do they want? Though they are discreet when discussing the Soulflower, the revolutionaries are far less cautious about making their broader affiliation known. They are scarcely the only people in this pub discussing explosives, debating liberation, or bemoaning the masters. From what you can glean, one is a former urchin who grew up on the rooftops of Spite. Another is a former academic who became disillusioned first with university politics, then with London's leadership. The Clayman used to work at the docks, but something happened to him. Sigils on his stone body. He is different now. Stay out of his way, whispers the gardener. The sun-touched gardener frowns into his untouched pint. Well, let's confer with the gardener, quietly. I suppose this explains why she didn't tell me how dangerous the Soulflower was, rasps the gardener. She didn't trust me. Maybe she thought that if I'd knew the revolutionaries wanted it, why they wanted it, I'd have stolen it, or sold it to them, or something like that. And that's fair enough. Pause. I suppose. Another pause. I was a smuggler, but I thought we had an understanding. Didn't think she'd let me get hurt for the sake of keeping it secret. He stifles another cough and fumbles for his handkerchief. Still, what's done is done. I know she didn't. He convulses into the handkerchief, the noise mercifully muffled by the din of the pub. Time to leave. I can't learn any more here, says the sun-touched gardener. Beer slops onto the table as he pushes his pint away. Help me up. Let's escort the gardener from the pub. This is no place for a sick man. The gardener's teeth chatter as you help him to the door. You bundle him into a carriage and ask the driver to take you far from the pub. Amid such chaos, it is impossible to be certain that you are not being watched. As the establishment disappears from view, the rocking of the carriage sends the gardener into a fitful sleep. The sun-touched gardener needs to recover. The seed takes root. We should, says the sun-touched gardener, swaying, to the mushrooms. He takes 3 steps and collapses on the cobbles. Despite having received the antidote, he is in no state to go anywhere. Well, let's take him to rest. There's a boarding house nearby. The proprietor is hesitant about admitting you both to the boarding house. Who knows what manner of illness this man is carrying? But eventually decides she would rather the gardener was sequestered within a back room than on the street in front of her establishment. You help the gardener up the creaking staircase and lower him down upon the bed. His breath comes out in hot, very slightly glowing clouds. The sun-touched gardener writhes on the bed, sweat dampening the sheets. A vein throbs at his temple. It is probably just the lamplight, but it appears that beneath his skin, his blood is glowing. Let's talk to him like he did to us. The gardener smiles as you speak, but it turns into a grimace. "I'm alright," he says. "It'll pass." He pushes his damp hair aside. "I think I wasn't ever really here before this. In the Neath. I thought somehow my real life was still on the surface, going on without me. But it's made me realise there is no other version of my life where I stayed up there. I've wasted so much time thinking I should be somewhere else, but this is the path I took. And even if it ends soon," he winces, "I'm grateful." Gradually, the sun-touched gardener's breathing slows. You place a hand to his forehead to find his temperature falling. "Let me rest," he croaks. "Just for a bit." Ensure he is safe, then leave him to rest. He'll be back soon. And I think this is a good place for me to end the episode. So thank you all very much for watching. Please like, subscribe, let me know what you think. Your comments are greatly appreciated. Thank you again to the members of the channel and the coffee supporters. It really does mean the world to me and help keep the channel going. And as always, I'll see you next time.